Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sari and this is day 20 of my Christmas countdown. So 5 more patterns left in this little advent calendar, and so 4 more after today, of course, because today is day 20. And I've been doing this ever since the beginning of December and highlighting always one of my favorite patterns or pattern families, and today we are talking about the Poet pullover and some of its sister designs. So we already had the Poetry pullover at the beginning of the countdown, but today we have all the other Poet patterns. So the original Poet you can see over here, and then the Poetria, and we have also a Poet top, a Poet tee, the Poet scarf, the beanie, and of course the socks. So when I was asking on Instagram what patterns you would like to see, the Poet beanie and the Poet socks were something that quite many of you wanted to see on this little countdown. So instead of having just a Poet like I originally intended, I decided to add all the rest of the Poet patterns that I hadn't featured already. So we had the Poetry pullover. That's the one with the circular yoke and all over a lace pattern. So we had that already at the beginning of the countdown, so that's not included in today's discount. But everything else, the Poetria that I'm wearing, the Poet pullover, and the accessories, the tee, the top that I just showed you, those are all minus 24% on Ravelry, as well as in my webshop on sarinordlund.com. I will link all the patterns below this video, so you can easily find them. So both the Ravelry and the Shopify links to all the patterns can be found below this video. So the Poet design is already, I think it came out in 2018, so 6 years old, but it's actually even older than that, because when you design something for a magazine, there's always a lot of work behind it. So the start of the design process, knitting the sample, adding or doing the submission call for the magazine, then there's tech editing, test knitting, photographing the layout of the magazine, printing of the magazine, and all that stuff. So the story of the Poet pullover started already actually in 2017, and I had found this really nice lace pattern on Pinterest that I liked, but I often like to do little tweaks to all the patterns, stitch patterns that I find. So I started playing around with the Poet pattern, and I ended up modifying the one that the lace chart that I found on Pinterest, and came up with this pattern. And then I went to my local yarn shop and I found Tukuwool's Tukuwool fingering yarn, Itokalwei Runo, and something just kind of like clicked in my head. So I immediately thought about that yarn with that lace pattern, and for a kind of like mid-season lace sweater. So I went home and I started swatching and casting on, and that's how the Poet pullover came to be. And I had just had my first pattern published in the Lane magazine. That was, I think it was 2017, and it was the Kiuru pullover. And then I met Sini and Jonna from Lane magazine and asked when they're going to have their next submission call, because I had made a really beautiful sweater in my opinion, and I wanted to pitch that to them. So they said that I could do it immediately, so I showed the photo of this sweater from my phone to them, and they decided to pick it for their upcoming issue immediately. So the Poet sweater came out in 2018. It was in Lane magazine issue 6, I think. It was their autumn issue, and I think I talked about this in my earlier videos, but I wasn't very well known at that time. It was one of the first designs that I made for magazines, and there was a huge learning curve for me about writing the pattern, and it was a lot of work. So I think I had about 3,000 people following me on Instagram before the Poet pullover came out, and then Lane magazine posted the first photo of this sweater, and it just resonated with people. So people were really into it, and in just a few days I had almost doubled my Instagram follower count. So it jumped, just a few days from 3,000 to 5,000, and when the pattern finally came out, I had already made it to 8,000 followers on Instagram. So it was totally crazy, and that's something that really launched my career as a designer. So people started to recognize my name, recognize my work. Instead of me submitting work to magazines started to ask, and yarn companies started to ask me if I wanted to design something for them. So it was really kind of like that magic moment for me, where my career really started, and that was kind of like the moment for me when I realized that this is actually something that I could do for a living, and I could actually just do this and not my day job anymore. I didn't quit my day job already, like immediately after that, but that was certainly the push that I needed to guide me into this direction, to take the leap of faith that I can actually do this, and I can design, and I can create something new and beautiful, and something that inspires other people. So yeah, that's why the Poet sweater is always going to be really close to my heart. So it's something that really means a lot to me, and I think it will always mean a lot to me. Even after all these years, I still think that this lace pattern is one of the most beautiful. It's really fun to knit. You can see that I've been making quite a lot of poet things this year, so this has been my poet year, or poet revival year. I'll talk about the new poet projects soon. One of the questions that I get every time I talk about the Poet sweater as well as the Poetria sweater is, what is the difference between Poet and Poetria? One main difference with these two sweaters is the gauge. So the Poet sweater, the original Poet sweater, was knitted with fingering weight yarn, whereas the Poetria is knitted with DK weight yarn. I used fingering weight yarn plus mohair, but you could also knit it with DK weight yarn. So you can see, if I put these patterns next to each other, so you can see the size difference of this lace pattern. So this one has a lot tighter gauge, so the size of the lace pattern is a lot smaller than this one. So if you look at the whole width, you can fit more of these full lace patterns on this Poet sweater because of the tighter gauge, whereas this one has fewer pattern repeats. Another difference is the neck. So this one has more like a crew neck, O neck, with folded neckband, and the Poet sweater has a boat neck, so it's a lot wider and less shallow. Also, it doesn't have a folded neck, so it has just like a single rib. And one more difference between these is the sleeve length. So the Poetria pullover has full length sleeves, whereas the Poet sweater has only kind of like a 3/4 sleeves with kind of like this long cuffs that you can fold like this. So this is more, like I said, transitional weather, lightweight with shorter sleeves, and this is thicker. You can use fingering plus mohair, or you can do it with DK weight yarn. Both are okay, and it has long sleeves and round neck, folded neckband. So those are the main differences between the Poet and Poetria pullovers. So the Poet pullover was the first one in the Poet family. After that came the Poetria. The next pattern to make it into the Poet family were the Poet socks that you can see over here. So they are knitted cuff down, and they also have the same lace pattern that you can see here. So this is the Poet sock. It has heel flap with reinforced stitch. It has the round French heel, and then gussets. So they are knitted with fingering weight sock yarn, and like I said, cuff to the toes. This year, like I said, this has been kind of like my Poet revival year. I have made 4 new Poet patterns, and I actually have 2 more planned. I will talk about those plans soon. One of the new patterns to make it into the Poet family is the Poet scarf. So you can see it here. It's this small triangular scarf that I made for my summer shawl knit along this year. So you only need 1 ball of fingering weight yarn, like a 50-gram ball of fingering weight yarn, and 1 ball of mohair, about 225 meters, 250 yards, something like that, of both. So you start at one tip, increase until you reach the midpoint, and then start decreasing to the other end. And I have this kind of like I-cord edge over here, so it's made with slip stitches, and you can see it has the same lace pattern. This was knitted with chaos yarn, organic merino and organic brushed alpaca. And just put it around your neck, and let's do a couple of little knots over here. So looks like this. There are many ways that you can wear it. You can also put a triangle in the front and just bring the ends to the sides like this. I like wearing it on kind of like having this tip on one shoulder, and then just bringing the ends to the other shoulder. So the tip is over here, or the tip of the triangle over here, and then just throw these ends over here. If you have a shawl pin, you could add that over there, but this is the way that I like to use this scarf. So this was one of the Poet patterns to make it to the family, and then I made a Poet top. So this is knitted also top down, and it has an all over lace pattern, and there's kind of like this folded hem and I-cord straps. So this is something that I used a lot last summer. I made mine with Ovis etc. silk yarn. It has beautiful sheen. And I love this kind of like mauve colorway of the yarn. And then we have the Poetria. This was one of your favorite patterns this summer, so a bestseller this summer, and I used mine a lot. So you can see the stitch pattern over here. This is the Rerum Naturals Penelope, so it is a merino silk yarn. It has an amazing stitch definition, as you can see. Even though this is kind of like a dark colorway, you can still see the pattern really well. So this is more like the Poetria sweater, based on the Poetria sweater rather than the Poet sweater. So it has a similar, more round neck and just shorter sleeves compared to the Poetria sweater. So the Poetria over here. And the latest addition to the Poet family is of course the Poet beanie. You can see it here. I made two. So this is in a more light colorway. It's knitted top down. So you start here at the top and then start increasing in the pattern. You can see the pattern over here, and then a folded ribbing over there. And then I made the same in this beautiful burgundy colorway. You can't really see the pattern as well with this one. You can see when the light hits it, but otherwise this might be a bit too dark color for this stitch pattern to show. But I love this color, so I don't really mind, even though you can't see the pattern that well. But yeah, the Poet family is now discounted -24%. So the Poet sweater, the Poetria sweater, Poet tee, Poet top, Poet socks, Poet beanie and Poet scarf. All of those are -24% on Ravelry and sarinagland.com until tomorrow, that is December 21st, end of the day Helsinki time. And tomorrow we have another pattern in this countdown, and I'll see you then. Bye!